So ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to give a warm welcome to Shamishtha Mukherjee. She'll be in conversation with Miss Manraj Kriwal Sharma, a resident editor of the Indian Express section here, consulting editor with Asia Pacific Adaptation Network, managing editor of Gender, Technology and Development, an international peer-reviewed journal. She has so many feathers to her hat. She has authored a book on Punjab militancy also, Dreams and Darkness. So, the stage is all yours.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. Thank you for being here and welcome to you, Shamishtha.
Thank you so much.
I spent the last few days reading her book. It's a bedtime read and it's really very engrossing. Pranav, her daughter Remembers, is not only incisive, it's also very non-judgmental. There is no attempt to tar anyone. There's this, it's got a very gentle tone that really you find very endearing and you keep returning to the book. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for your kind words.
Not at all. So I will start with the fact that you've written a lot about emergency. So, and it's in the media especially, it's a very touchy subject. All of us, no matter how, even a young newcomer is told, how media was muffled, etc. Yet you have tried to give the other side of the emergency, and why she had to impose it. Because when the popular perception is that it was imposed by an arrogant leader trying very hard to cling to power.
It's an interesting question you have asked. In fact, in my so many sessions on this book I have had in different literature festivals, I think perhaps you are the first one to ask this question. The whole idea, because, to be very honest, I also had this idea about emergency, and which is, it's one of the black chapters in Indian democracy. There is no doubt about it. Media was suppressed, any kind of opposition were repressed, elections, both in terms of the local election and the states, were indefinitely postponed. So definitely those kind of things were not acceptable. That time, first let me just tell you that how this book came about, then only I will be able to answer this question truthfully. My father, late Shri Pranab Mukherjee, had the habit of writing diaries, and it's a very old habit of his. And obviously his diaries, being a very active politician who has always had a ringside view of Indian politics since posthumously, when he is no longer, and then it's up to her whether she wants to publish it, whatever she wants to do with it. So after his passing away, when I started reading his diaries and emergency, especially the contemporary accounts, people talk about emergency and what happened during emergency, about what preceded emergency, what kind of situation was there prevailing in the country that led to, justifiably or not, that's a different issue. That's for the historian, political scientist to answer that question. But what kind of turbulent period it was that led to the imposition of emergency. Before that, there was this huge railway strike by the firebrand socialist leader George Fernandez, which led to such a situation that the coal reserve of the government of India just was for 2 days. Finally, the strike was called off. There was huge and lot of agitation happening. First, it started in Gujarat, then in Bihar, where Jayaprakash Narayan JP, as he was popularly known as, one of the tallest and most respected leaders of his time, he put his weight behind the student agitation, and these agitations were not peaceful. They were not non-violent. There were heroes, there were arsoning, there was disruption of public life. There was torching of government properties. In fact, just 6 months before imposition of emergency, the Union Railway Minister, Mr. Mishra, Lalit Narayan Mishra, I think was his name, he was assassinated in a bomb blast. And in this context came the famous Allahabad High Court judgment, in which Raj Narayan, who was contesting against Indira Gandhi, lost hugely and filed a case against her, accusing her from malpractices. In that context, the Allahabad High Court judgment came nullifying Indira Ji's election, primarily on two grounds: that she used some rostrum mic on government expenditure, and secondly, she used the services of one government officer, Yashpal Kapoor. And all the other, she has misappropriation of funds, of using government vehicles, of using religious symbol, there were many charges. So she was acquitted of all those charges, but primarily, it was that because she used some mic on government for an election rally and used the services of a government officer. And in fact, that time one foreign media, it wrote that perhaps it is kind of giving death sentence for a traffic penalty. Now, if a judge, decides to nullify on flimsy ground the election of the current Prime Minister, and also bar him from contesting the election for the next 6 years, what will happen to the fate of the judge? It's just a question. I'm not coming to any conclusion. On top of it, the day before, I think on 25th June, the election emergency was declared. On that day, JP had a massive rally at Ramlila Maidan in Delhi, where he said, he thundered that the army and the police, before obeying any government order, first should ask his own conscience whether it's right or wrong. Now imagine a situation if every police officer or army officer just paused to first ask his conscience before obeying the order. And this is an elected government. It is an elected government. It's not just, it's a like foreign colonial government. So what kind of anarchy it would lead to? So for example, by nullifying Indira Gandhi's election and stopping her, prohibiting her for contesting it for the next 6 years, it is not impacting only one person, not only one member of parliament, but also not just her voters, but also it is impacting, a huge number of Indians who voted for Congress, under her leadership. So, these are questions, when we read about emergency today, these are questions, these are issues, I don't see it anywhere. I didn't see it anywhere. So that's why, I devoted some part of it, trying to, portray in a very, that these were the situations, the emergency, imposition of emergency, and consequently what happened, perhaps was as turbulent as the period leading to emergency. So when we talk about emergency today, when we read about emergency today, it's about all what happened during emergency, not the situation which led to emergency. So that was my idea, to portray another side, the other side of the picture.
He also tried to justify it, to tell people the correct picture, but things didn't work. And when she fell out of power, a lot of people deserted Indira Gandhi. And you spoke about the Chief Minister of West Bengal, then Chief Minister of West Bengal, who was handpicked by Indira Gandhi. Siddharth Shankar. I think he was the governor there as well, right? So he's of tremendous interest because he was a governor during the militancy, Siddharth Shankar. And you mentioned how he was very friendly with Indira.
He was a personal friend. They were, they studied together in England. And they were so close that he used to address Indira Ji as Hindu, by her pet name. So it is he who actually pointed out to Indira Ji that such a provision exists in the constitution. That to impose, due to internal disturbances, there is a, but after that subsequently, it was removed through an amendment of the constitution. But at that time, there was a provision in the constitution to impose emergency. It was Siddharth Shankar Ray who actually suggested to Indiraji
He
this.
also deposed against her.
He deposed against her at Shah Commission, and not only he, many leaders, senior leaders. That time my father was a very junior minister. I mean, he was first a deputy minister. Those days there was a deputy minister, it's called. And then he became a state minister. He was a junior minister. But many senior leaders of the party who used to, during emergency, said that Indira is India. So they deserted her and they deposed against her. And one thing, my father, going through the diaries of my father at that time, I felt that people who were within government, people who were within Congress at that time, and many of who later deposed against Indiraji at Shah Commission and various other investigative bodies which were formed to see the excesses during emergency. So they all at that time supported emergency very strongly. And my father, he also felt at that time, given the unruly situation and also the economic situation of the country was really bad. Because there was just before that Bangladesh war, so there was, though we had a decisive victory against Pakistan and a new nation was created, but the economic toll on the country was massive, coupled with the refugee problem. There was major balance of payment issues. So all these kind of things, he felt that due to a position of emergency, this law and order situation, it could be controlled, tougher economic measures could be taken. But much later in his life, he wrote it in his book also, that when I look back at this, in his own words, when he said when he looked back, he felt that emergency was perhaps avoidable. And he also wrote that, at that time he was politically immature to see the impact emergency would have not only on Congress party but on the nation in general. So he said that, he confessed that he didn't have the political maturity he didn't have that vision. And he personally felt that had Mrs. Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, met Jayaprakash Narayan even once personally, this perhaps things would have been very different. And this very interesting thing, I heard the same thing from other side, who was one student leader, who was also jailed during emergency and who was close to Chandrasekhar, who was very close to JP. Even he also said that, if JP and Indiraji, basically it was a clash of egos between two great, very strong personalities. So if JP had met Indiraji once even personally, perhaps things would have been different, and he was talking from the other side of the fence. So it's interesting that, how,